Hi, it's Tom here, and I'm joined by Dave.
Hey Tom, how's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. Today we've got the Switch version of Zelda to play with, and the big question obviously is how does the game compare when it's in portable mode against the docked mode, where we can expect the fuller, better experience with 900p resolution and that sort of thing. The big question going into this though was raised by a recent video that was posted online showing some differences between the two states that you can play it in, portable and docked. The impression at the time was that the portable mode dialed down the graphics, so as ever you're not going to get a great impression of the visual quality when compared to full capture when docked. There's no way to capture video on the Switch while it's in portable yet, so...
Yeah, so we came up with a solution to this. So while we can't capture actual direct feed gameplay in motion, we can use the screenshot function to get an actual native direct feed frame grab from the game running in portable mode to compare up against our 1080p captures of the docked version, basically.
So you've done all the testing on this. What did you find?
So I went through and looked out for all the usual differences you might find, you know, sort of shadows, effects quality, that kind of thing. And mostly in terms of those sort of features, most of them are exactly the same between the docked and portable mode.
So let's start with the big one. I mean, when I first heard there was a portable and docked mode, I immediately thought, right, the level of detail might have changed, or there might be better textures, there might be better effects. But let's cut to the chase. Is there anything?
Not in terms of draw distances or level of detail, no. You know, if you look really closely, you can see that some of the edges are displayed a little differently, but that seems to be down to the fact that we're looking at 900p versus a heavily upscaled 720p image, rather than any differences in the actual game itself.
So let's get this straight. We get 900p on the docked version, but we have a 720p native on the portable mode. But because the handheld has a native 720p screen, that's a perfect pixel match and it looks really crisp on the display. But with any display you're using the Switch with in docked mode, you're going to get a scaling on the 900p image, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So in docked mode there is a slight extra softness there because you're not getting one-to-one pixel mapping. And obviously when we're showing you the portable version here, this is not what it looks like on the handheld. You know, the one-to-one pixel mapped image on the handheld looks really crisp, really sharp, and looks really good. So the resolution difference really is kind of a non-issue because you're essentially getting a perfect match on the handheld.
Right, and it's worth mentioning I did notice a lot of aliasing on the portable mode actually because of the one-to-one pixel map, and there's not very fine pass on aliasing in this game. You can really catch it. But by comparison, I mean, the first thing I was looking for in your test shots is the LOD, the draw distance, and it really looks the same. You've picked some nice overviews of the whole of, I'm guessing, Hyrule, and it's, you know, the trees are, and rocks and all these objects are in the same place on both sides. The only difference, obviously, is the weather and cloud coverage, isn't there?
Yeah, so the cloud coverage and to a certain extent like shadows and stuff are dynamic, so they're not always in the same place due to time of day transitions, which kind of occur sporadically in the game, you know.
And shadows are a big one, but I think it's fair to say the shadow quality is fundamentally the same up close. When we do see a difference, it's because of the time of day shifting it by a few inches to the side, but I do notice there is a slight difference in filtering quality, which is the big point with this comparison, because while we do have a resolution difference, there is one graphical difference we have noticed, and that is filtering quality across the ground on textures and shadows as well. So nearby you get textures and the quality of the mapping is identical between docked and portable, but as you look into the difference across the ground at kind of tight angles, you'll see the filtering lines are further afield on docked. That means it's clearer for a longer distance. On portable, that filtering line is closer towards the player, or at least your camera's point of view, which doesn't really bother me hugely on a portable device.
No, like when you're sort of eyeballing our captures on a desktop PC, then yeah, you can notice it, but on a portable screen, I gotta be honest, I didn't really see that difference when I went from playing on a screen with the docked version and then looking at the actual Switch handheld. Because it's so small, it's not something that sticks out, so it's kind of a wise choice from Nintendo in terms of an option to downgrade, as it's not going to be something you can just immediately spot.
No, it's worth justifying that in given the docked mode doesn't have great filtering anyway, I don't think it looks great. You can see all the sort of cascade lines running across the ground as you run around. I'm sure anyone will notice it if they look for it, especially on shadows where you can really see the filtering run across. But yeah, the portable mode, it's slightly worse, but you don't notice it because of the screen size. Is there anything else though? Is it just the kind of randomized cloud coverage stuff and arbitrary differences in lighting that were randomized?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There are no other actual sort of chosen graphical compromises, as it were. You know, they are identical in terms of like the raw assets.
So Link's model is exactly the same quality, the textures are the same, the effects are the same.
Yep, and you get to see all sort of the same sort of more finely detailed objects from a distance outside of the texture filtering difference.
Pretty underwhelming if you were going to go for docked, and it does suggest that the hardware's been underutilized in the docked mode when compared to portable. My hunch is, and bear in mind the difference in clocks when comparing these two modes together, on the docked mode and portable mode we have a 1020 MHz CPU clock. But the GPU speed does change when you change these states. So on the docked mode that would be 768 MHz, but in the portable mode they've got two modes to play with. They can either use half that clock speed at 384 MHz or 307, which is a marked downgrade in terms of what the Switch can actually do. So my hunch here is that they simply took what was possible on Wii U, transferred that to the portable, and added maybe a higher resolution 900p for the docked mode, and then bumped up the texture filtering as well. It's really just these two improvements we're noticing, and it's a little bit disappointing. We'll see how the Wii U stacks up later down the line once we've got the code for it, but yeah, it's a little bit disappointing from that angle.
I think from my perspective, it's not so much that it's running at 900p, but it's the performance differential between the docked mode and the portable mode, in a sense that we're not seeing locked 30 frames per second when running docked on the Switch, despite the additional sort of GPU power.
And I guess we'll move on from here and look at performance. And this is where we're going to see a bigger difference in terms of how the game plays, because, well, I didn't expect this, but it turns out the game runs better in portable mode.
Yeah, I found it quite surprising that there was such a difference between docked and portable modes. So I played the game docked at first and noticed some pretty hefty frame rate drops early on, just when sort of going down this mountain here and attacking the first enemy. As soon as you go into a foliage heavy area, turn the camera around, there's some, well, the frame rate drops down to as low as 20 FPS at this particular point, whereas in portable mode it remains stable at 30 frames per second.
Yeah, this is really odd. It's not just that it drops, but the nature of the drop. It's a sudden burst, a spurt of kind of lag that comes out of nowhere just by turning the camera. And we should be clear, it's not about the content of the frame and the complexity of it. It's more that the new information is coming in at a rate that it's not ready to cope with, almost like a streaming issue via the memory. It was there on the Wii U footage we analysed way back in earlier builds, and we may see it on the Wii U when we analyse that. But it is really odd that the docked version only has this problem and not the portable. So what is the lowest drop you've seen, and is it really a big issue?
Well, the lowest drop I've seen in docked is 20 FPS. And I guess the thing is you never know when it's going to occur. So you can be fighting an enemy in one location and frame rate's perfectly fine. It's mostly 30 FPS, maybe a 1 FPS drop, nothing major. But then you turn around and you go back through the area you've just been through, and the frame rate can drop to 20 FPS even though there's less action going on. So I kind of find it a bit jarring that you can get a perfectly smooth experience and then suddenly there's a hefty impact on performance, and there's no initially a visual reason why that might be happening.
Yeah, that is odd. And another thing to note about that is it is a double buffer VSync, so when there is a drop it will attempt to kind of flatline at the next best level, so that would be 20 FPS, and it's that can result in some very big dips when it's kind of going in between, when really, you know, it can be at 30 and then suddenly cut to 20 and then go back up to 30, and if it's in between those you're going to see kind of a really awkward cadence in the motion.
Yep, that's right. And you don't see any of this on the handheld mode, which is basically I'd say it's the preferred way to play, because it is a much smoother experience. It is solid. From what I've played so far, it has been 30 frames per second, and I've not noticed any little drops. We went through the footage we recorded via filmed on camera, and I went through individually each frame to check, and it was a perfect 30 frames per second.
But we almost didn't need to do that, because I played a fair bit of this in portable mode and didn't notice any drops. It was really smooth. Well, for 30 FPS, it was, exactly what I expected, and it was great. There is a thing about portable games though, in that they can, in theory, get away with lower frame rates. We saw it with MGS Peace Walker back in the day. It was running at 20 FPS there. No one noticed. So I was thinking, if there was a version or a mode that they could get away with frame rate drops, it was the portable. They could have done it, but it's the exact reverse, and it's really odd.
Yeah, it wasn't something I expected to see. I kind of thought maybe with the docked version you get a more premium experience, you get the higher resolution, the frame rate is more stable, and possibly some better effects, but it seems to be a bit hit or miss in that respect.
Right. I guess we should mention it is fully updated as of day one, and there's no patch kind of waiting for us. This was the patch that we got on day one. So very strange that the performance is the same.
Yeah, well, I actually downloaded after I did the initial analysis, I downloaded the day one patch, and I ran through again the same sections, and frame rate, the performance is exactly the same with the new patch enabled.
Okay, I think that'll cover it. This answers the initial question, really, how does it run on Switch when comparing both modes? But I think the bigger one, in light of this, is how it runs on the platform it was originally intended for, the Wii U compared to Switch. Do we still have these performance drops? How do the visuals compare? My guess is it's going to have very similar visuals to the portable mode here, and we won't see much difference, but it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. So we'll be covering that very soon as we can get our hands on the game, and we'll let you guys know the results as soon as we get them. But in the meantime, thanks so much, Dave, for putting this together for us.
Cool, no worries, Tom.
And if you did like this analysis or found it interesting or insightful in any way, please do give us a like or subscribe. We also have the source file for this video on our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, so feel free to check that out. But until next time, thanks for watching.